On this episode, we talk with Naomi and JJ Cox. They are traveling evangelists, and throughout their lives, they were both labeled as one thing or another. And to hear their stories and the decisions they made based off those labels and the path that it brought them to is amazing. And I hope you guys take out of it as much as we did. Enjoy. Basically finding out how people built a fire, an internal fire through foggy times. So that's the gist of it.
I think it's awesome.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, we did a little research when we first started and didn't really see anything like what we wanted to do, what we're doing now. There's motivational podcasts, there's, self-help, stuff like that. But we never really heard or seen, what am I trying to say? We never seen anything where you had a story of somebody having some issues or going through a hard time, dealing with something, and then hearing their perspective on how they got through those things. And that's kind of where that kind of started clicking for us. That's an avenue that we don't see much of,
Yeah, there seems to be a ton of podcasts out there that are like geared towards self-help, but they're really just the one person and like their viewpoint like over and over and over and over. So this is great.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I just kind of thought about that the other day. People, it's the self-help stuff. I mean, it could help anybody, but I think a lot of people are getting missed. I think the people that are below, like they're down at rock bottom, but they're also between rock bottom and getting back on level ground. I think all those people are missed in between. I think the self-help stuff, it kind of gets those people that are like, yeah, I want to build a business. I want to get rich. I want to be better. Like those people that are below that level, they're not there yet. They still need a hand to be lifted up. And just bringing these people on and hearing these different stories. And there's other people out there that might have struggled with similar stuff that you guys did or another one of our guests did, that they can hear that they got through it and we can connect them. That's the biggest thing, because sending them to a therapist and whatnot, we've noticed that people like that doesn't help. Giving them medicine, giving them all this that doesn't help. Talking about it helps. But then on top of that, talking to someone who's also experienced something similar can help even more. So that's where we're at.
Right.
But less about us. Let's hear something about you guys.
Super excited to hear you guys tell your story a little bit.
Sure. It should probably go. JJ's got I love his, his whole story.
So, I guess I'll start at the beginning.
Sounds good.
I was, so when I was born, getting ready to start kindergarten, my parents, they noticed there's something was wrong. I hadn't started talking and I wasn't responding. And so, they took me to the doctors, and in front of my parents, they did all kinds of tests. And this went on for a little bit. And they, in front of my parents, they told, and in front of me, they told my parents that your son has ADHD, autism. He'll be in special ed the rest of his life. He'll be lucky if he can tie his shoes. And my parents were upset because they did it in front of me. And they said, well, basically, the lights are on, but nobody's home. And they said this in front of me. And so that was my life, starting off real young. Other kids were going to kindergarten. I was going to special ed and basically coloring every day. And so what really helped me is I remember during those times, I can remember, even though I couldn't talk, I could remember things. And on the way home that day, my father looked back and he said, well, we know what the doctor's saying, but we're just going to hang on to God, and we're going to pray and believe and just see what he's going to do in the circumstance. So this went on for years. I went to school to special ed, and my teachers began to say, we know what the doctors are saying, but his artwork does not line up with what they're saying. He's communicating through art. And so the doctors argued back and forth for a long time. And they told my parents that even a blind boy can play piano. You know, they basically wrote off the fact that I was doing art above what, you know, my age was.
Well, because they had asked the doctor if they could teach him how to play instruments, because his whole family is very musically inclined.
My dad was like, I'm going to teach him to play. And they were kind of laughed at the time. And they said, you know, with his condition, like we said, he'll be lucky if he can tie his shoes. He'll be in this program the rest of his life. So this went on. My father's pastored a church for 40 something years. He's still pastoring now. And growing up there, you know, I would get thrown in and I was part of the church. But even though I hadn't started talking, I still had the ADHD, hypertension. I had a long list of other things that they said, basically, I never was going to be normal. This was my life. You better get used to it. And so even though I couldn't speak, I had hypertension and ADHD. So I was still what we call a pastor's kid. I was just real rambunctious. I got what we call them whoopings. And here, you know, Tennessee, I would get like 6 and 7 whippings there in church because I couldn't sit still. I was into everything. And so my dad found out the one place that I would just be calm is we had a drummer at our church, and they started sitting me there. About 7 years old, about 6. They started sitting me behind the drums, and I would watch him play. And when I watched him play, I just calm. I relaxed, and I began to draw and just watch him play. And so that was my seat at church because he got tired of, I guess, the whoopings. But this went on for a while. And one night, our drummer was out of town, and I still had not started talking. I sat down on the drums, and I began to play. And my dad, I remember he just began to cry. And so we went back to the doctor, and it's like, my son's playing drums. He learned from watching. And they kind of laughed, and they said, a blind boy can play piano. And my dad said, well, I'm going to teach him, and we're going to begin to teach him. And so, you know, from that moment on, whatever the church needed, he would put the instrument in my hand, and he would say, you watch me. And I mean, I wasn't talking, but I began to play. And he began to move me around every instrument. And I just began learning by touching, you know. And basically, it was at a point we would go to the doctor every time my dad was relentless. So when I would learn something, we would go back to the doctor when something would happen. And they got to a point where they began to say, okay, when they seen us coming, they would say, what's God doing now? You know, they got tired of hearing it. And they're like, what's God doing now? We know what you're going to tell us. What's he doing now? And so this went on for a while, and they said, well, he's still not talking. So I was 8 years old, and we had gotten out of church, and I had a little guitar, and I had been playing for a little bit, and you know, my dad would tune it, and we sit down, and he was tuning my guitar, and I looked at him. I said, out of tune, just like that. Now he tells it that I haven't shut up since. That's what he said. But I remember it. I mean, I remember those times. And so the next day, we went right to the doctor again. And my dad's like, he's talking now. He told me I was out of tune. And so they began to get me speech therapy. And I began talking. And within a couple of months, I began putting full sentences together. And then all of a sudden, the teachers were telling my family, he's a great student to be in special ed. He won't be quiet. We can't get him to be quiet. And my dad was like, he's making up for lost time. And so the teachers were like, we're going to do some tests because he doesn't need to be in special ed. And the doctors said, well, he hadn't been learning. And so, I really began to see how good God is, man, because when they did these tests on me, the teacher said that he knows what he should know for his age. He's on track.
You were around it all the time. You were listening. You just weren't talking. Like you were hearing all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the doctors were like, we're not doing that. We're not putting him in school. We're not doing that. And my dad said, I want to get him tested again. And they said, we've tested him a couple of times. He has this long list, autism, ADHD, and then they added dyslexia later. But this is the long list of all these things. And they said, he'll never be able to be normal. He'll never do this, That's what I heard most of my young, growing up from the doctors. You'll never be normal. You'll never do anything. Your special ed's it. And so we went in to do these tests, and they began testing me. And, the doctor, man, he came in, and he's like, we don't understand it. I can't explain it. And my dad looked at him and said, I can't because our God is more than enough. And they said that I didn't have anything. The only thing that I still deal with is ADHD. And we're full-time ministry. We're full-time ministers. We either travel all over the country, and I love it. And when you have ADHD and hypertension, sometimes I can do 8 things at once, which is great for what we do. But then there's some days I hyper-focus on one thing, and I can't get anything done. But for the most part, it's not a bad thing. I mean, I can get a lot more done than most people. And so that's the only thing that I have. And so I went into normal, I guess what you call normal school, 6th grade. And the doctors is like, well, we'll do it. But like we said, he'll never graduate. He's learning, he's talking, but he'll never graduate. So 6th grade came along, then 7th grade, and 8th grade. And at my graduation, we made sure the doctor was there. And so most kids got their diploma because, see, I had gotten to talk to the doctor before I graduated. And I told him, I said, I heard the things that you told my parents when you said the lights are on, but nobody's home. I know you thought I was too small, but I heard you say that. And I heard you say this, and I heard you say that. And I began to tell him the things that when he treated me basically like I was dumb and I wasn't even a person. And I began to tell him, I heard you. So he came to my graduation, and most kids were finding their parents when they got their diploma. I found him, and I went up to him, and I said, I got my diploma. And, I like to cut up, and I like to joke, and I can be a smart aleck, my wife will tell you. And I pointed down. I said, I got my diploma, and I tied these shoes. He just said, you're a statistic. I don't know what else to say. And so, through my life, man, I can just see where God's been amazing.
For sure.
And so he basically used art and music through all my life. So
is that some of your art behind you?
Yes, these are some pieces that I'm working on for
They look awesome.
Art show coming up. So
looks good. I seen your the big massive Jesus piece you made too.
Oh yes,
that
sir.
thing is awesome.
Well, part of our ministry is we'll go into a conference or a youth rally or church, and we'll go in and I'll have a set of music that I'll play, and I'll do a painting like that. Most of the time they're 4x5, and I'll do it in under 12 minutes. And in that painting, there'll be 3, sometimes 2, sometimes more different scenes that overlap to make the final scene. So I can tell, a full Bible story with illustration, because that's how I learned. I learned the best when I seen it, not, when I put my hands to it, when I began to experience it. That's how I learned. So that's how we minister. And the great thing about art is it's bridged the gap of the domination. So we go to all over the nation, all over different churches, and we use art. I really enjoy it.
That's amazing. So at that age, did you know? So you said you heard him, but did you know and understand what he was saying? Did your parents allow you to understand that or know what he was saying?
I just knew something was different, and I just knew that I remember feeling, there's something not right, but my family's like, you're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I don't remember why I just didn't speak or couldn't speak. I don't remember that part, but I remember hearing conversation, and I remember going to the doctor, and I remember the doctors basically never. That's all they ever said.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's awesome that you had your parents and family reassuring you that everything's going to be okay, and it sure was.
I think one of the takeaways for me from his story, we're able to speak to a lot of young people, because like his whole life up until that point, the world screamed at him disability, and God changed that to ability.
Yeah.
And it's really just powerful that, he's a walking example of you're not defined by what other people say you are.
Oh, for sure.
You don't have to be labeled as that.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that really, do you pass that along to people? So just basically at a young age, you were already told you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to do that over and over and over. So right there, you've already built that resilience just by knowing that you were able to do it. That moment of holding that diploma and having your shoes tied, you just hear that resilience in your voice. It's like, I did do it. So being told over and over and over that I'm not going to be able to do it, just hearing that for you, I'm sure that's amazing.
It is. And, it's just, I know that what helped me the most, it was God. I know, some people don't like that, and it's not a popular subject, but man, I've seen him all over my life. I've seen him move when nothing else could,
Awesome. How did you guys meet?
Well, we lived 5 hours away from each other. So JJ, after he got out of high school, he went to seminary. He ended up getting his master's in theology. And he's actually back in school now, getting an art degree.
That's awesome.
So that's awesome. But so 5 hours away from here, I was starting to go to ministry school because I felt like God was calling me to preach and evangelize. And during my second year there, through mutual friends, we kind of ran into each other, and that was that. It all kind of made sense.
That's cool. That's a good story.
Where'd you guys go? Where did you go, JJ, for schooling?
I went to Oral Robertson University.
Okay. Yep.
And then now I'm at ETSU,
Yep.
East Tennessee State University. It's an art school in Johnson City, Tennessee.
Know exactly where it's at.
He's from Tennessee, so
I am.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome.
Yep.
I went to Lee University in Cleveland.
Yep.
And then the ministry school that I was talking about is through the Church of God. It's their pastor program.
Gotcha. Yeah.
do you have some fog you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my whole life up until a certain point was fog. No, not you. Up until you, maybe. I grew up and I had a very great upbringing. My family, loved me passionately. Definitely kept me in church all the time. And so from the outside looking in, everything looked perfect. Of course, family problems, right? But everything looked perfect. But on the inside, it was really just a disaster. I struggled with weight my whole life. And from the age of 5 in kindergarten, was just severely bullied every way possible. And we were just talking about this last night. We were doing another one of these, and I mean, like firecrackers thrown at me, gum in the hair,
wow.
like you name it. And there was such a lack of self-esteem at such an early age that was just to me normal. And I never really learned how to process emotions or talk about them. So I never talked about it to anybody. And so what ended up happening for me was I developed an insanely horrible relationship with food. Whenever I experienced any emotion, I ate, whether I was super sad or happy or whatever, and society kind of sets us up for that in a way too. We eat for everything. Mm-hmm. There's no celebration without food, especially in church. Yep. And what that ended up leading to is, you're a teenager, you start developing crushes, and then that was just like rejection. So when I was about the age of 18, I moved away from home for a while. I was actually gone for 10 years. And then I thought I was getting out, but looking back now, I can see that I was running. And what it led me to do was to spend 10 years trying to prove to the world that I could be loved. Because during that adolescence, there was someone in my life, in my family, that told me that no man will ever want you. And so I set out to prove that to be false. It landed me in really bad relationships. The last one I was married before, and it was abusive in every way. I was on the verge of 500 pounds. I had suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, on medication for all of that. I became a hermit. I never smiled, never made eye contact with anybody, didn't take care of myself. And I think that I was telling them last night, I think the only thing that really kept me from going through with suicide was one God putting a burden on my heart for my family, because I didn't care about my pain, but I didn't want them to experience pain from something that I did. So what happened to me was about a year and a half before the end of my marriage, I met just an incredible group of women who really didn't know my situation, but they were just bent on letting me know that I had worth and value. And they did it in such a way that it was very non-intrusive at first. They kept trying to get me to come over to their house. And I was like, I don't do that. I'm not coming over there. And I told this girl, her name's Stephanie, like a million times, I'm not coming over there. And finally I realized she's not going to stop. So I was like, I'll come over there for 30 minutes. That's all you have. I'm a very busy person, like nasty. Like, she's like, okay, come on over. So I get over there, I sit down on her couch, and this was the pivot point for me. She got on her knees in front of me. She like put her hand, like, I don't remember if it was somewhere on my hand or on my knee or something like that. She's like, I don't know what you're going through, but I know that it's not great. And you don't have to go through it alone. I'm here to lock arms with you and walk through this together. And it just like, it like broke me, like not in a bad way. Because it's not like my family didn't ever love me or wouldn't have offered me that, but to have this like third party, completely unbiased person show that amount of obvious, like authentic love was mind blowing to me. And so she became really the first person that I ever had in like a circle, because I just shut everybody out. And so she gradually got me around her circle. And what that started in my life was this health journey. And it started off as me trying to like lose weight, right? Because I went to the doctor for the first time in those 10 years that I had been gone. And I got on the scale and it was close to 500 pounds. And I just stood on the scale looking down at the number, crying in the doctor's office. Because I'm like, how did this happen? Like, how did I get here? I worked in the automotive industry, and I went to go pull a car up that same week for a customer, and I couldn't get behind the steering wheel. And so it started off as like this health, like I need to lose weight, but it turned into a mind, body, and soul thing to make me realize that there was parts of me that were not okay and had not been okay for a very long time. And that ended up giving me the courage to take the way of escape that God had provided out of an abusive marriage, because I had tried to leave several times. But I always went back. And it's funny because I always thought of those women and was like, why would a woman do that? That's so stupid. And then there I was in that very situation. And so the last day that I ever seen him, he tried to take my life, and cops got there in time. I found an incredible roommate. She nicknamed her home the House of Restoration. And I began my healing process there. I left the auto industry for a short period to go work somewhere where I couldn't be found, go live somewhere where I couldn't be found. And I just started feeling for the first time. Like when you're in a place where you're having suicidal thoughts and you shut the world off, you don't feel, I mean, sure, you feel like crap, but you don't process anything other than like worst case scenario. You don't process it in a manner to get through it. Mm-hmm. You just process it in a manner to stay in it. And so for the first time in my life, I was processing to get through it. And I feel like that was more painful than actually going through the stuff. Mm-hmm. Because at that point in time, I was in my early 30s. And there were so many things about my life that I was kind of mourning. Like, even though the marriage was horrible, I was mourning getting a divorce because my parents had worked so hard at breaking generational curses. Mm-hmm. And I, like, in my mind, I messed that up, which wasn't reality, right? But that's the kind of things you tell yourself. I mourn the fact that because of choices I made, I would never have children. I financially just distraught. I was having this like giant pity party, but one that I kind of had to have because I had to own up to decisions that I made. Because that's really what happened was I spent my entire life being a victim. Yeah. And it just kind of built on itself.
Yeah, you called it a pity party, but that's your realization. That's your
Yeah.
That's when you see, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I need to start changing. That's obviously God, showing you, this is the plan I have for you. You're not doing this alone. Don't think that you're doing this alone. I'm with you. And it's awesome to hear that one person kind of started the whole chain reaction, because she followed, she was listening. She was sensitive to the Spirit, right? She was doing what she was supposed to do. And had she not done that, who knows? Obviously we do know, because God has a plan. But at that point in time, timing's everything, right? And you guys know that, being evangelists. God's timing is above man's thoughts. Right. What we think we need right now, that doesn't always line up with what God says is going to happen. So That's awesome to hear.
Well, I spent that year with her, and then I thought, this is funny, I was like, I'm good. I'm going to get my own place. I'm going to be independent. And so I moved out. I got my own place. I went back to the auto industry. I tried to, for the first time in my adult life, have my life and no longer need to be codependent, because that's also what I was dealing with. And I did all of that, but I was not done going through the healing process.
Yep.
The first year that I was out on my own was heart-wrenching. There were days where I would just sit in the dark and just cry, because it's hard getting past that. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of regret, a lot of doubt even. And so Satan really tried to squash my calling at a very young age, and tell me I wasn't worth it, just like JJ. Mm-hmm. And even in those moments, I was running towards God. I was closer to him than I had ever been in my life. And in those moments, Satan was still trying to squash, what I was starting to hear. So I went to my pastor and I told him, I was like, I feel like God is calling me to do something, but I don't know what that is. And he's like, well, we're going to Peru on a missions trip. Do you want to go? I was like, sure. Send me. That's cool. So I go to Peru on a 2-week missions trip to build a home in the middle of the summer there, third largest desert in the world. And it was the wake-up call of my life. We worked 12 to 16-hour days outside all day, no shade, carrying concrete and dirt up and down stairs, mixing concrete on dirt, doing rebar, throwing bricks. And you had to go this enormous length to get to a store, where our stores might have 30 brands of soap. This store might have one, and it's $20.
Yep.
So I came back with my eyes open, and I really felt like God was calling me to more. So I go through the Church of God school, which helps you kind of discover, do you have a calling? And I left that after a year knowing that I wanted to preach, and that I wanted to let other people, especially women, know that they do have worth, they do have value. They do not have to live the way that they've accepted that they've been living for so long. And then after the second year, I met JJ, and all of the things that I had mourned, I had accepted that I was going to be alone, and I was finally okay with that. Jesus was finally enough. I had accepted that I would not have children. I was finally okay with that, because Jesus was finally enough. And at that moment, it wasn't 2 weeks later that JJ walked into my life.
Wow.
And he's previously been married before too, and has 2 beautiful girls who are 9 and 11. And so everything that Satan tried to rob from me has been replaced.
That's
From
amazing.
cars that were repossessed, to the lack of children, to the lack of love, to my own house. Everything has been given back to me tenfold.
That's awesome. So JJ, I think I feel like I'm on a similar wavelength as you. I have also been diagnosed with ADHD. It's not as bad. I used to have it really bad. But my wheels are turning right now with Naomi. I've been sitting here. So we've had a few people on here that have discussed suicide and everything. And hearing you talk, I have a question right now. It's what do you think takes you You're on a fence. I'm picturing someone on a fence. It's either suicide or it's life, death, life. And you said you started feeling again. Do you think that takes a choice of someone to do, or do you think it takes, I guess, a godsend or something like that, kind of like what you were talking about? Do you think someone is capable of making the choice?
It has to be both. So God's a gentleman, right? Like, he's not going to force anything.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie came to me that day, and I could have chosen to not stay in that place, or I could have chosen to stay in that place. But I made a choice
mm-hmm.
that I was so at the end of my rope.
Yeah. That
this had to be what worked.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I wasn't willing enough to cause my family pain.
Yeah. Cause that's what you said to you, you couldn't handle the burden that it was going to leave on your family. So, yeah, and I've heard that too.
But
yeah, I've heard that too, is the burden that my family's going to have to carry will stop me. But just thinking of, is it a choice or is it just like a godsend? And yes, it was sent there to you, that Stephanie was sent there to you, and you chose to do that. Cause I know a lot of people say they don't feel anything. Cause like you even said, I started feeling again after that. Some people they say they have this darkness inside of them and they want to reach out, but they can't. They literally physically can't. It's interesting stuff to me.
It's very interesting. And I'm not arrogant enough to say that I even understand it, because just this past week, one of my former coworkers back from where I'm home, he took his life.
Yeah.
26, 27 years old.
Yeah. It bugs me. It bugs me a lot. There's something to it. I know it bugs people, obviously, like someone taking their own life, and you have the people that say, wow, what a coward, that's weak. And that hurts me. To me, it hurts because I wish I could go help all these people, and but you don't know. You just don't know. And it's such a difficult subject to talk about or deal with because you just don't know. And
you know what I think a big problem is? Our culture and our society, and I mean, this is kind of like common, like jargon,
mm-hmm.
but social media has made us to be unsocial, right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
in that same regard, we are like groomed to put on a smile at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment we're young, and we learn the manner of ask, hey, how are you? Good to see you. And you move along. Like, there is a lack of what should be home training for most people at a young age on dealing with emotions right now. And I think that if we did a better job at that, and did a better job at like mental health care and acknowledging that it's real and it's okay, then a lot of the problems that we're seeing right now with suicide, maybe the numbers would go down.
Definitely.
Nobody knows how to talk about anything.
Mm-mm.
Like, especially like, I don't know how old you are, but like kids in their like early 20s, they're so awkward to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't even know how to communicate.
They don't make eye contact or anything.
No. So of course, how would they talk about anything like deep?
Mm-hmm.
They have no outlet, none.
Yeah, I'm in the art program right now, and I'm not the oldest there. I'm proud of that. I'm not the oldest, but the kids there that are 19 and 20, I'll get to talking to them, and one of the biggest things that I see that's lacking is mentorship. Just someone that to step in and say, this is how I did it. This worked. Let's talk. Just someone to be a leader to them, to be, that I guess that father figure, because there's a lot of people that don't have that. Even when they have a father, a lot of times they're not having that, that mentorship.
Masculinity's fading fast.
It is, and you have to be careful when you're using the word masculinity.
Yeah.
So, it's really something today having two little girls, I try to show them how that they should be treated, and I'm just used to, I guess, Southern charm. And so, like, at my school, here a while back, there's a lady with her hands full of stuff. And I opened the door for her, and she began to yell at me and cuss me. And she said, I don't need no man to help me. Don't gender identify me. So I just let the door slam on her. I said, okay. And so I'm just to that. Man. I'm just to that point that, to me, it's just men need to be men and need, just to help a younger generation, and women need to be grown up and help a younger generation.
Yeah. Because, if they don't, we're going to lose that next generation, and who knows where it'll be.
Well, that's biblical, direction is, like the women, the elder women are supposed to teach the younger women, and so we're so self-absorbed. Like even older people, like life is so busy. Like everybody's so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. We're really, I think there's some truth to that, but everybody's really selfish.
Yeah.
Like the mentoring thing for younger people doesn't even need to be a, hey, here's how I did it. It needs to be a, hey man, let's hang out sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And get them to talk. Yeah. Get them to talk about themselves. Cause that's the biggest thing. People like to talk about themselves. And if you get someone to talk about themselves, especially teenagers, you're going to start to learn, and then you talk about their interests and stuff.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to go back to, you said you finally got out of that victim mentality. And I kind of just learned this the other day. You've just tell the truth, that the story that you're holding on to, that you're connecting to, for example, with you struggling with weight, you had a problem with food. You had that connection when you had these feelings. It triggered you to just go to food. For me, it's just telling the truth. Stop being the victim of your story and rewrite it, is what I just learned the other day. And I loved it. And that fit perfect with that. And that's what you've done. Both of you rewrote your story.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, both of you have rewrote a story.
Yeah. And I think it's a pride issue sometimes. Man, do you know that before I married my ex, probably 2 months before, I remember driving down the road. I remember the road I was on. It's called Full Run Road in Prince George, Virginia. And I remember thinking, I should not go through with this marriage, but my mother just paid $800 for a wedding dress. That's pride, right?
Yeah.
And stupidity, but like pride, because I was so embarrassed. Like, what would they think of me? Because here I am trying to prove to the world that I could be loved, right? And so surely I'm not going to tell everybody I was wrong this whole time.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point too.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you would, for a teenager or anybody going through some weight issues or anything, or bullying or anything like that of the weight, what would you give them to get through it? What's one piece of advice that would separate them from either changing something or just feeling worse?
So I think that we are actually trying to do that right now with our two girls. And that is just establishing a healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily, and I don't think it should be about weight. I think it should be about, so the family system and the school system, I feel like, are failing children today.
I agree.
In many ways. The first thing that needs to be discussed and taught is how to deal with your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can get that down, then you're not going to have to worry about any addictive personality traits, because you'll be able to identify with emotional intelligence. I am making this decision rashly, and I need to slow down and think about it. But we have there are so many people who are adults who don't even know what emotional intelligence is.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so that's not being done. So here in our home, we have talked about weight. I have been very open about the medical struggles that I have based off of being that overweight for so many years, because I think it's important that people know that, so they don't follow the same path. But more importantly, we choose wise bedtimes, right? We talk about getting enough sleep. We make sure we're drinking enough water. We try to make sure that we're active. You know, it's a whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're taking care of being a healthy person and taking care of the temple that God has given you, then like organically, you're going to be healthy.
Definitely. I like that. So it's not overcomplicating it as well.
No, I don't want to give them a complex with the scale, right? I mean, there's enough of that with magazines and Weight Watchers commercials, and I don't want to do that. I just come join me on my journey.
Yeah, and if you're making the right decisions and you're being intentional about it, like you said, you're gonna be healthy.
Yeah.
So I like that. You got anything right now?
No, that just goes back to like the culture that we're in, social media, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. They see all these things that are presented as normal life. That's not normal. A lot of the things that they see is just pathetic. I mean, it's sad. It's sad. That's the best way I can put it. I mean, I think we know where things kind of started shifting within the country and the culture that we're in. We're on the same wavelength there, and it's sad to see expectations put on a 12-year-old girl for what she's supposed to look like at that age. That's sickening.
Yeah.
It really is.
Or signs up at schools saying, if you'd like your COVID shot, please report to room number
exactly.
blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Like what?
Oh, man.
Well, like where I go to school, the new thing now is, I was doing a report on my daughters, and I'm like, my daughters, and the teacher's like, they. I'm like, my daughters, and they're like, they. I'm like, my two girls. And they said, no, we don't say that. It's them or they are. And there's another long list of that words that you could use. I was like, those are my two daughters. And they're like, why don't you let them choose? I'm like, sometimes they can't even choose the right colored shoes. They wear miscolored shoes.
The choice was already made. God made that choice. So don't tell me to let them make a choice. God made that choice for them in the womb.
They would eat pizza and ice cream all the time. If I let them choose, they'd eat pizza and ice cream every day.
You know what I feel like is happening, and I've talked about this. I don't remember who we were talking about, but I feel like Satan's number one tool right now is being the author of confusion. And I'll tell you why, is that you and I, we can love each other like passionately, and we may have different opinions about something. And the moment we go to speak about that different opinion, it's like there is absolutely no balance. There's absolutely no like empathy. Like you're not even gonna like be quiet to hear what they have to say. You're waiting for someone to shut up so you can respond, right? And it's so confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are made out to be like bigots and haters and like all this, and it's just like a blanket of confusion is just sitting on the world right now.
Absolutely.
And the Christian is being set up right now to be the bad guy, to be the terrorist, to be, because like the world's just gone crazy.
I mean, it's to the point right now that Satan is not even hiding who he is. He's telling people.
He doesn't have to.
Yeah, this is who I am. And they're like, okay. Yeah. We can live with that,
Be who you want to be at that point is what, he's using the same thing that they're telling. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. 100% agree. 100%.
I don't know how we got on that, but
if you want to make in a liberal arts school, if you want to make people mad, when they ask you what you identify as, you tell them, well, today I'm going to identify as a Mack truck. Yeah, that don't go over good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who to say, using the same theory, who are they to say who you are, right? I mean, that's
everybody wants to chase the shiny penny.
Yes.
And that's what Satan's flashing right in front of us is a shiny penny, and that's the easiest thing to go to. We're taking the easy route. Not we, us, but they are taking the easy route. So I did have one more question for you, JJ, with the ADHD stuff, because it may help me and I may have something that could help you. But what are some things that you could give someone that is diagnosed with ADHD that actually struggles with it? What are some things, how you organize your day? Because I know you said you could do 8 things at a time, because I feel the same way. I feel like some days I'll be like on it. I can bam, 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 all this stuff. But then the next day is like, I'm just done. I don't want to do, I can't.
Here's my biggest thing, and I struggle. Some days it's a superpower, man. Like you said, that's what I call it a superpower.
Yep.
So like in when I'm doing projects, for school or education, my biggest thing is I have to tear it apart and look at it one thing at a time, or I will get overwhelmed and I will say, oh, I can't do this. I'm done. I have to look at it like it's just one thing at a time, because I automatically will just get frustrated. And if I get frustrated, a lot of times that's it. That's it.
Yep. Yeah.
But that's my biggest thing is that you're normal. Because I heard that I wasn't a lot. You're normal. You just have a superpower.
Yeah.
There's days you can do more than anybody. There again, there's days you can't. So it's really your focus. You have to redirect.
Yeah.
And then also your attitude. I mean, it can make it or make you or break you. You know. And, I struggle with tests. When it comes to like art, I can do that stuff frontwards and backwards. I'm like, bring it on. And now you put, like, I have a thing called art history, hate it. And they show you a slide of a picture somebody painted, and they said, who painted this, what year, and what's it made of? And they get 30 of them. My brain shuts off after the first one.
I'm walking out.
I studied it, and I may know it. And so like, the teacher's like, what'd you learn in class today? And I'm like, there's 433 squares in the ceiling. Because my brain shut off. Because I couldn't take them.
Yep.
I start counting or noticing things. Yeah. So the main thing is to just redirect and just to stay calm. So.
And just don't look at the whole project, do piece by piece is what I heard too. Because that's the same way. Like if I see a whole project, if I see a whole list of projects, I quit. I'm done for the day. But if I start with one project, I get one off. Like just do something off the list is what I'm teaching myself. Just do one thing, and then it just builds momentum. And like I'm good for the day.
And then if you get a wife that's a list maker, then that's just another set of problems. That's more fault.
Yeah.
We're polar opposites. Like I'm very have y'all taken the DISC personality profile test?
I've done a few.
Yeah, I've taken it. It's been a long time. It's been a while, but I've taken it before.
We're polar opposites. I'm very like he calls it OCD, but I don't feel that way. Organized, like I have a list going all month of all the things that need to be accomplished during the month. Yeah. But I'll tell you why. So for me, we're full-time ministers. He's in school full-time, like on campus, guys, like five classes. And the kids, and I'm on staff at our church as the creative director. So during the week, I'm there. So we have an extremely busy life. So for me, it helps me to see what we have going on. For him, it's like,
it's overwhelming.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So what we've started doing is the big list is me, right? But on a daily basis, I'll just send them in Messenger, hey, these are the things that you have to do today. And it does help him
get
it done because he's got so much going on. I really don't even think it's so much ADHD. You just have such a heavy workload. Like it's a lot.
Yeah. you have to keep us busy.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear because I have I foster kids. I have 2 foster kids on top of our 3 biologicals. And the oldest, he's 9. They've diagnosed him with ADHD. And I never grew up around that. So I didn't know it's still a learning phase for me. Like he's been in my life for like 2 years now, but I'm still trying to learn like his triggers and like how to communicate with him without getting upset with him because I know he's trying to learn and he's trying to listen. But then, you know, if you're talking to him, his head turns and it's something else. And I feel like you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So to go piece by piece to break it down is.
Can I give you some advice?
Yeah.
Like I've got you.
Let me tell them what is going on. So let me tell you what happens. She can be talking to me, and there's days that I can do 8 things at once. And so she can be talking to me, and I'm listening to her. I hear what she's saying, but something else comes to my mind, or something else catches my attention. I'm still listening to her, but I look over here, and I'm doing 2 things at once.
Yeah.
She automatically says, "You're not acknowledging," her word, acknowledging me. And I'm like, I hear you, but I'm doing this too.
All right.
And she's like, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "Yes, I can." You know.
Listen, here's your advice. Okay, on a couple of things. So JJ loses every cap for every tube of toothpaste ever created. Okay?
I don't know why.
Here's the solution. Don't get the toothpaste with the screw top. Get the flip top. Okay?
Yeah.
JJ will go to the refrigerator, and instead of taking the grapes out and getting what he wants and put them back, he will pick off of the stems in the refrigerator. So there's stems all in the refrigerator. Take the grapes out, take them off of the stems, put them in a container, problem solved. Find solutions, like label things, like just make it easy.
Yeah.
Agree.
Naomi does stuff like that, so I stay at the gym longer. But
That's awesome.
It's just with his focus.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can even say, hey man, look at me. So I know you're talking to me. That's what she does, and it's called redirecting.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean they're not listening.
Yeah.
It just means their mind. Our minds never shut off. Even when we're sleeping, a lot of times there'll be things I'm thinking about, and so it means that he's doing several things in his head.
Yeah.
Why he's talking to you, and so that's what I deal with.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
If you guys don't want to add anything else, I can ask my final question.
I'm good.
All right. So basically we ask, what to you does it mean to be a fire through a foggy time? What is the one piece of advice, a one-liner that you could give someone just to initiate that fire, just kind of get going and sustain, I guess?
Don't go by what they label you as. Just make up your mind that you're not going to be what everybody else is. And make up your mind you're not going to be what everybody labels you. Just because someone says you're a failure or says you're dumb or you'll never make it or you'll never be able to do anything. In the Bible, I think about Moses. Man, Moses, the Lord called him to be a leader, and he said, I can't I have a heavy tongue, and some translations say I stutter. And so basically, God tells him, he says, well, I made your mouth, I will feel it. When you go to study that, nowhere in the Bible does it actually say that Moses had a speech problem. Moses was the one that said it. God never said it.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, it never brings it up. For me, I would never listen to the doctors, when they were telling my parents, he'll never be able to do this or that. When I started talking and they're like, well, he'll never be able to graduate. He may go to school. I never would listen. And so I had all these people telling me, you never will, you never will. But I never would listen. But I would say, I can't do this or I can't do that. It's funny that I wouldn't listen to the doctors, but I would say these things about myself. And so that would be my thing is above all else, man, you've got to just say, I don't care what is being said. I'm going to be okay. And I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. And I think that's the hardest thing for anybody.
Yeah.
Is, just to say, you know what? I can make this.
Mm-hmm.
I know odds are against me. I know what they're saying, but I can do that.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest thing is just to always remember when it comes down to it, even the Bible says, choose you this day. So every day you have to make a decision that you're going to get up, you're going to go, and you're going to try, regardless of the circumstance.
Yeah, definitely. So you have the two statements that stick out to me is just the positive self-talk, just I am and I can.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think for me, it would revolve around the fact that we've become such an apathetic society. So my one-liner would be a question. Are you aware that this is your only shot at life? And are you settling for mediocrity? Because if you can honestly answer those questions, then you'll have the answers.
Yeah.
You'll have what you're looking for. I mean, that's a self-evaluation.
Yeah, that's a good challenge.
Are you settling for mediocrity?
Yeah.
So then it's going to be, what are you going to do about it? Like, what's your legacy? What are you doing?
That's powerful. Mm-hmm. This whole conversation was powerful, and it just in the middle of it, it's really cool. I started thinking how cool it is we get to meet people like you guys. I really haven't thought about that until now. I mean, you guys are awesome, and it's cool that we just get to meet these people. Like we don't even know each other. Yeah. We didn't get it, and we have these opportunities to do this and meet these new people. It's just awesome to me, and I love it. Like I appreciate you guys.
Oh, we appreciate the opportunity. We have sold out our lives to sharing not just our stories, but God's story of grace and love and redemption. And there's not a soul on the planet that doesn't need to hear it.
For sure.
Our statement is life on a mission. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what our big thing is. It's what we love. It's our passion.
Yeah, I love that. How can people connect with you guys?
So they can find us online. We have a website. It is thepastorpainter.com. And then we're also on Facebook and Instagram under JJ Cox Ministries. There's a lot of different things that we do. The main thing that we do is go to churches, schools, conferences, and events. And we will provide worship music if you need. And JJ will do the speed painting to music, and then he preaches, and his sermon coordinates with whatever he paints, which is really cool.
Wow.
We also do murals. We just got back from a 2-week trip in Mississippi where we did 300 square feet worth of murals for a restaurant.
That's awesome.
That kind of stuff keeps us on the road because we we're on the road 51 weeks a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is you do is commissioned pieces of work. Yeah. And then I do like social media management on the side.
Okay. Yeah. So Ohio's not too far for you guys. That's where we're at.
No, have us up.
We'll keep in touch.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So.
No, we go to all denomination churches. So
one of our big, like our logo is paint the word. So that's kind of how we, when people asked us, we have shirts that say paint the word. It's just the way we like to bring the word is through the art, man. That's how we do it.
I like that. I'll have to check that out. Do you sell those online?
I do. We have several hats and shirts and
prints
of my art pieces. And
yeah, I want to get in touch with you guys. I think there was one if I'm not mistaken, I saw it was the Lion of Judah, right? The crown, Jesus' silhouette behind, I think. Yeah. I think I want to get one of those for sure.
I used to do that as a speed painting, and it would be 15 minutes with 2 brushes, so big one. And then now people they want a lot quicker when you go into a service.
Yeah.
So my stuff's a lot quicker, and that was a lot of color. That one was. Now they're not as much color, but they still have a lot of impact. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I'd like to get one that's a little darker, a darker tint. I don't know if that's possible or whatever, but we'll connect there afterward and we'll see what we can do. That'd be awesome.
Oh.
Well, it was an honor and a pleasure of having you guys on. I appreciate your time. It was nice meeting you, and we'll look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Yes,
what a moving conversation with Naomi and JJ. This man's art is breathtaking, and how he's able to do it through sermon and do it so quickly is amazing. And then his childhood story of just being able to pick up an instrument, hear it a couple times, and then just be able to learn it. People are so amazing, and we get so caught up in today's drama, the world's drama, and we forget to actually look at people and meet them and learn from them and just appreciate others. The biggest things that JJ said was just don't go by the labels. If you're labeled, everyone's different, but don't let that deter who you are. Go against the grain, prove them wrong. And he did. He was told he was never going to be able to talk, and he is. You heard him. It was just cool. And then Naomi just finding that pivot point was key in her life. And if you're in those dark places and dark times, you have to find the pivot point. It'll come, it'll happen. And you just have to pivot and go the other direction. So you guys can follow them. They gave you how to follow them, where to find them. We'll attach it all to the post and all the social media platforms. If you want to reach out to him, contact us at Fire Through Fog or reach out directly to Naomi and JJ. But other than that, that was a powerful, moving conversation, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good night.